I've entitled what I want to share with you today, Pioneers or Settlers. Are you a pioneer or are you a settler? And we read in Genesis chapter 11, 31 through to chapter 12, verse 2. We read, "And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came into Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran." Remember, Haran was his brother's name, which so no doubt he named the city after his brother. "Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, and unto the land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing." Notice God said, get away from your family, your kindred, and your father's house. At first, Abraham stayed with, you remember, with his father and with Lot, his kindred, his relative. It wasn't until he separated from them that God truly blessed them. And you'll notice when he tried living alongside Lot, there ended up with tension and strife and problems. And so the challenge is, are you a pioneer or are you a settler? Many years ago, a pastor friend of mine decided that he was going to build his own house, and almost all of the church members got excited about it and volunteered to help. But he told me that after a few weeks, there was only one or two of them remained helping. The lesson is, in life, there are a lot more starters than finishers. I remember one preacher once talking about when he was at Bible college that there was over 100 what he called shining stars in his year who looked as though they were going to be great preachers, but at the end, very few of them ended up in ministry. And in verse 31, we read that Terah left Ur, Iraq, and set out for Canaan, the promised land, some 400 miles southwest of Haran. In fact, it was Terah who took Abraham with him, but for some reason, he stopped and settled in Haran. The pioneer became a settler. Can you see where we're going with this? He became another statistic of the there are a lot more starters than finishers principle. Notice, as I've said, the place where Terah settled was called Haran, named after his deceased younger brother, chapter 11, verse 26. Terah had set out for the promised land, but he stopped on the way and settled. Now, to name it thus, it must have been very pleasant. You wouldn't name a place after your brother if it wasn't really pleasant. But we need to learn a lesson from this, that the good can be the enemy of the best. We need to remember that. I said that God told Adam not to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God didn't want him to experience evil, but he equally didn't want him to experience good. He only wanted him to experience the best in paradise. And so many people settle for the good instead of going after the best. Never become a settler. There are many people who they'll look at somebody who's rich and say, oh, I wish I was rich, but they could have been so much richer than they are. They might not have been as rich as the person they're looking at, but they could have been much richer if they had concentrated, if they had focused, if they had sought to be the best. Whatever God's called you to be the best. If he's called you to be a nurse, don't just do the minimum you can to pass your nursing tests. Read them volumes, know as much as the doctor does, because the ones who get promoted are usually the best. And go for the best. I know some people who deliberately, they didn't want to get promoted. They were happy with being like off the radar. But those kind of people will never become rich, never reach their full potential. And you say, well, I'm happy as long as I've got enough for me and my family. Well, if you've only got enough for you and your family, you're not much use to the kingdom of God. You don't have to keep it. As long as I've got enough. No, our desire should be to have far more than enough so that we can make an impact for the kingdom of God. But the answer is, are you settling for good instead of going after the best? Are you fulfilling God's call on your life? Are there promises you've received from God which you've given up believing for? I'm going to ask you those questions again. Think about that. Are you fulfilling your call? Are you giving it your best in life? Are there promises you receive from God which you've stopped believing for? Unbelief will stop your miracle on its way into your life. When you get in faith, faith is the magnet which brings good things into our life. And while you're in faith, you're bringing those things that are part of your blessing, part of God's blessing for you, part of his prosperity for you, part of his destiny for you. When you're believing, you're bringing those things into your life. But when you stop believing, it stops the miracle on the way into your life. It's time, my friend, to get back into faith. I feel this is a word for someone listening to me now. I feel also God saying to somebody, don't get impatient. If you've not yet seen the fulfillment of all that I promised for you, don't give up believing. This reminds us that there is an order. This is important what I'm going to share with you. There is an order in seeing God's purposes come to pass. Faith works alongside patience. They're the power twins. By faith and patience, we inherit the promises. Faith takes hold of the promise of God. Patience keeps hold until it manifests. Sometimes we've got to be patient. Patience is not sitting there bored. No. Patience is an aspect of faith. It's saying, I know God is faithful, so I know it's coming. I'm just holding in there until it manifests. Miracles, as I've said to you many times before, miracles begin in the unseen realm, and it's your faith which draws your miracle out of the unseen and into the seen realm. And so hold on, keep believing, don't give up believing. God hasn't finished yet. Let me say that again, what I said. There is order in seeing God's purpose come to pass. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes it's not just you. God has to get other people in their place as well. For example, Joseph, and we're going to look at Joseph very soon. We're really getting there. I see the end of our study in Genesis in sight. We're going to speed up a bit after we've spent a while looking at Abraham. But Joseph, as you know, he was betrayed by his brother. He was sold into slavery. He could have got so discouraged. Then just when things are looking up and he's got a great job for Potiphar and prospering, his wife hits on him, and when he rejects her advances, lies to her husband and said that he tried to rape her, and he's thrown in prison, and everything looks lost again. But he never lost his faith, even during these things, because even the bad things in his life were stepping stones towards success. If those bad things hadn't happened, he would never have come before Pharaoh. If there wasn't a Goliath, nobody would ever have heard of David. And so he later said to his brothers, you intended it for harm, but God intended it for good. Believe, oh, my friend, believe that God is working everything out for your good. God's working things together. Seeing God's plan fulfilled takes time sometimes. Did you get that? Seeing God's plan fulfilled sometimes takes time. Sometimes other people have to be in place. I said he ended up in prison, and he interprets the dream of the wine bearer and the baker. And when the baker's released, as he prophesied, he said, don't forget to tell Pharaoh about me. What did the baker do? He forgot. But it wasn't until the Pharaoh had a dream that he remembered Joseph and said, I know someone who can interpret dreams. You see, there was a right time. If he had told Pharaoh about Joseph before he had his dream, it wouldn't have helped. And so there's a right time. Believe for the right time. I'm speaking to myself sometimes now too. Don't get impatient. Just hold on in faith. Just believe what God has told you, that it will come to pass. And even when God could have created the world in one day, but he created it by a process. Day 1, day 2, day 3. Listen, as I was preparing this, God spoke this very clearly into my spirit. God created vegetation before he created animals. Think about that, because that's important. If you create the animals before there's vegetation, you could have a problem. Well, thankfully, Abraham listened to God and kept going. And that's a lesson for us. And I'm going to share with you in our next session. I'm so excited. I can't wait to teach this to you. I want to share with you 5 steps. 5 steps into your destiny. I know that it's going to be a great one. And then after that, I want to share with you in the next one after that, I'm going to share with you 6 crowns which we as believers can look to the Lord for, because it's all about the rewards. Well, I trust you've been blessed by today's study. Call somebody and tell them they need to watch these programs. Encourage them to watch today's program if it's been a blessing to you. And as you're able to sow a seed to help us keep sharing these messages around the world, know that I care about you. God bless you.